There comes a moment when you've given everything you could, when you've explained, chased, waited, and hoped, and finally something inside you just lets go. It's not a decision made out of anger or pride. It's born from exhaustion, from clarity, from realizing that trying harder won't make someone see your value if they're not ready to. That moment, the day you stop trying, is when the energy shifts completely. Because when your effort fades, the power dynamics silently reverse. What once felt like you chasing them suddenly becomes them feeling your absence, your stillness, your peace. You see, when you're constantly trying, reaching out, proving yourself, you unconsciously tell them that your worth depends on their approval. You give them the comfort of knowing that no matter what they do, you'll always be there to make things right. And people, even the ones who love you, can get too comfortable with that certainty. They start assuming your presence is guaranteed, that your effort is endless, that your heart will always be open no matter how they treat it. But the moment you stop trying, the moment you stop explaining, stop texting, stop chasing, they feel that shift deep in their core. Your silence speaks a language they can't ignore. It says, I'm done proving my worth to someone who can't see it. It's calm, yet it carries weight. It's quiet, yet it demands attention. Because deep down, they sense something has changed. You're no longer emotionally available for their inconsistency. You're no longer waiting on a message, analyzing every word, or hoping they'll suddenly see what's been right in front of them. That's when they start to notice everything they took for granted. They start replaying moments, how you cared when they were distant, how you stayed when they were confused, how you believed in something even when they didn't. But now those moments are gone. That energy, that attention, that warmth, it's no longer theirs. It's like a mirror breaking in slow motion. The image they once had of you being the one who always tries begins to shatter. And that's when it hits them. Your silence isn't punishment, it's evolution. The truth is, the more you try to make someone see your worth, the less they see it. People recognize value in its absence. When your presence is constant, it blends in the background. But when you step back, when you stop showing up where you're not valued, the contrast comes undeniable. They begin to feel the void. The comfort of your attention fades. In its place comes uncertainty. What happened? Did they stop caring? Did I push them too far? That's when their mind starts doing what yours once did, overthinking, wondering, missing. This isn't about playing games or pretending not to care. It's about understanding energy. When you stop chasing, you stop feeding an imbalance, you allow life to rebalance things naturally. And that balance is powerful because now, instead of reacting, you're observing. Instead of trying to be understood, you're at peace with not being. And ironically, that peace becomes magnetic. That calmness makes you more attractive than any words or actions ever could. You stop chasing love and started embodying it within yourself. The day you stop trying is the day you send a silent message that says, I respect myself enough to walk away from confusion. And that's the message that hits differently because it's not filled with anger or resentment. It's filled with strength, with calm certainty. And that's something people can feel even from a distance. So when you stop trying, don't think of it as giving up. Think of it as handing life the responsibility to show them what they couldn't see when they had you. Because one day when the silence stretches long enough, they'll start to realize the peace you gave them wasn't ordinary. The effort you made wasn't replaceable. And the connection you offered wasn't disposable. But by then, you'll be too far into your own growth to look back. That's the moment when they finally understand your worth and you no longer need them to. When you stop trying, something powerful begins to happen within you. You start reclaiming the energy you've been giving away. For so long, you may have been pouring yourself into someone else, hoping that your effort, patience, and consistency would finally make them see how much you cared. You kept showing up even when they didn't. You kept understanding even when they were distant. You kept forgiving even when they never asked for it. But when you stop trying, it's not just about them anymore. It's about you finally choosing yourself. It's about redirecting all that love and energy inward instead of wasting it where it isn't valued. For the first time in a long time, your focus shifts from proving your worth to feeling your worth. You stop trying to make someone stay and start asking yourself why you were fighting so hard for someone who didn't meet you halfway. You begin to see how much of your peace you traded for connection, how much of your confidence you sacrificed trying to be enough for someone who never made the same effort. And in that quiet realization, something beautiful happens. You start healing. Healing doesn't always look graceful at first. Sometimes it's messy, uncomfortable, and filled with moments of doubt. You might question whether walking away was the right choice. You might miss familiarity of casing them, even if it was painful. But over time, the noise fades. The emotional chaos that once consumed your thoughts starts to calm. You stop checking your phone as much. You stop replaying conversations in your head. You stop needing closure from them because you've started finding it within yourself. You begin to recognize that love was never supposed to feel like begging for attention or proving your place in someone's life. It was supposed to be mutual, natural, and effortless. And when you realize that, your heart begins to settle. You learn to sit with your silence, not as a punishment, but as peace. You stop craving validation from someone who couldn't give it because you start validating yourself. You stop needing them to see your value because you finally see it on your own. The truth is, people often mistake your stillness for indifference. They think your silence means you've stopped caring. But it's deeper than that. It means you've stopped suffering. You've stopped forcing something that was never flowing. You've stopped being emotionally available to a situation that only drained you. And when that happens, your energy shifts, you glow differently, you speak differently, you start carrying yourself with quiet strength. That inner peace becomes visible, and others begin to feel it too. And here's the irony: the very person who once made you feel invisible starts noticing you again. They begin to wonder why you're not trying anymore, why your energy feels so distant, why your focus is no longer on them. They can feel the difference because for the first time, you're not energetically chasing. You've pulled back all the effort that once made them feel in control. And suddenly, they realize that the one who tried the most was also the one who made them feel secure, loved, and grounded. But by then, you're no longer the same person. The healing process has changed you. You've learned to set emotional boundaries. You've realized that real love doesn't require chasing, it requires alignment. You've started reconnecting with your own life, rediscovering what makes you happy without needing someone else's validation. You start sleeping better, smiling more genuinely, and finding peace in the small things again. You stop asking why it didn't work and start feeling grateful that it taught you what love shouldn't feel like. That's the quiet transformation that happens when you stop trying. You don't just remove someone from your life, you remove the version of yourself that needed to beg for attention. You shed the habit of overgiving and start embracing balance. You begin to understand that the energy you invest in others should never come at the expense of your own soul. And once you reach that level of emotional maturity, there's no going back. The day you stop trying is the day you start healing, truly healing. Not because you don't care anymore, but because you finally care about yourself enough to let go of what hurts. You start to realize that sometimes the best way to love someone is from a distance, and the best way to love yourself is to stop chasing people who make you feel hard to love. In that silence, you don't lose anything, you gain everything. You gain clarity, strength, and self respect. You start to see your own worth reflected not in someone's attention, but in your ability to walk away from what no longer nourishes your soul. And that is the beginning of true peace. When you stop trying, something remarkable begins to happen, not just in your heart, but in the mind of the person who once took you for granted. At first, she may not even notice the shift. She's so used to your effort, your messages, your constant checking in, your emotional presence that she assumes it'll always be there. She's conditioned to believe that no matter what she does, you'll still show up because that's what you've always done. But the moment your energy starts to fade, when your texts slow down, when your focus quietly shifts away, her subconscious starts to pick up on it. It's subtle at first, an unease, a curiosity, a small wave of discomfort that she doesn't know how to name. She might convince herself that your silence doesn't matter. She'll scroll through her phone, see no notifications from you, and try to brush it off. But that silence, it echoes. It lingers in the background like a song she can't turn off. Because deep down, she knows something's changed. The dynamic she once relied on, the emotional safety net you created with your consistency, is no longer there. That absence starts to speak louder than all the words you once gave. In her mind, a quiet battle begins. She tells herself she doesn't care, but she checks her phone more often than she admits. She tries to distract herself, posting on social media, pretending she's unbothered. But even those actions are a reflection of that inner tension. The same silence she once thought was peace now feels like loss. Because your silence doesn't just represent distance, it represents the end of control. She no longer has your reassurance, your attention, your affection so readily available, and that uncertainty starts to eat away at her confidence. She begins to question why you stopped. She replays old conversations, trying to find where things shifted. She might even convince herself that she didn't do anything wrong, but a part of her knows the truth. She remembers the times you were there for her and she wasn't there for you. She recalls the moments you tried to communicate, but she brushed it off. She starts realizing how much you gave, how patient you were, how forgiving you had been. And for the first time, that realization stings. See, when you stop trying, it creates a void, and that void forces people to confront the reality of what they've lost. Your absence becomes a mirror, reflecting back to her all the moments she took for granted. She starts noticing the small things, how your presence made her feel secure, how your care made her feel wanted, how your consistency gave her a sense of emotional grounding. And now that it's gone, she feels the contrast deeply. But here's the irony: she may not admit any of this out loud. Her pride won't let her. She might act indifferent, convince herself that she's fine. But silence has a way of speaking to the soul, and that quiet energy you've created starts to work in the background. It's not revenge, it's reflection. It's your calm detachment that makes her question her own behavior. Your emotional withdrawal becomes her emotional awakening. At first, she might test you, sending a message, reacting to your stories, trying to see if you respond the way you used to. But when you remain calm, composed, and unbothered, that's when it truly hits her. She realizes that the power dynamic has shifted. The one who once chased now walks in peace, and the one who once felt in control now feels uncertain. That's the moment she begins to truly see your worth, not because you shouted it, not because you begged for it, but because your absence forced her to confront it. And while she's caught in that storm of reflection, you've already moved forward. You've grown beyond the version of yourself that needed her validation. You've embraced silence not as punishment, but as power. You've learned that peace doesn't come from being understood by others, it comes from understanding yourself. You stop needing to be chosen because you've already chosen yourself. And that energy is magnetic. As she struggles with her thoughts, trying to make sense of what happened, she starts realizing that your silence wasn't coldness, it was strength. It was the result of emotional exhaustion turned into clarity. And while she may never say it out loud, she'll remember it. She'll remember the day you stopped trying, the moment the energy shifted, and the quiet realization that she was the one who let go of someone who truly cared. Because that's what silence does. It exposes truth. It reveals who values you when you no longer give them your energy. It shows who was there for you and who was only there for what you provided. And when she finally understands that it's too late, the person you used to be, the one who gave endlessly, no longer exists. You've evolved, you've healed, and you found peace that doesn't need anyone's permission. That's when she realizes your silence was never a loss for you. It was the beginning of her awakening. When you finally stop trying, you give the universe a powerful message that you've chosen peace over chaos, self respect over constant rejection, and dignity over desperation. And that shift doesn't just happen on the outside, it happens within your energy. You move differently, you speak differently, you carry yourself with quiet confidence because you're no longer chasing someone who doesn't value your presence. That inner calm becomes magnetic. And the person who once thought they had you figured out, she starts to feel that change in ways she can't quite explain. At first, she doesn't understand what's happening. She just knows something feels off. The energy that once revolved around her, the validation that used to feed her ego, has gone silent. She may tell herself she doesn't care, that she's over it, that she's happier this way. But human nature is tricky. We always feel the difference when someone who genuinely cared about us stops showing it. The silence that follows your withdrawal creates an emotional vacuum, and slowly she begins to feel that emptiness inside. She starts replaying old moments, the conversations you used to have, the warmth in your tone, the way you used to make her laugh. It's in those quiet moments when she's alone, maybe scrolling through her phone or lying awake at night, that the realization starts to hit. She remembers how safe your energy felt, how consistent you were, how you always understood her, even when she didn't deserve it. And now that all of that is gone, she feels something that cuts deeper than regret. She feels the loss of emotional security. But what she doesn't understand yet is that your silence isn't a tactic. It's not manipulation or revenge, it's growth. It's the realization that you can't force someone to see your value. You've stopped trying to convince her of what she should have already known. You've learned that people don't change through your effort, they change through your absence. The lesson you couldn't teach her through your words, life is now teaching her through your silence. That's the beautiful irony of it all. When you stop trying, you actually create the space for her to finally see clearly. Your silence gives her something to reflect on. It allows her to confront the truth about her own actions, her own pride, and her own patterns. Without your constant presence there to reassure her, she's left with her thoughts, and those thoughts can be haunting. She starts realizing that she wasn't the one in control after all, that the validation she got from your attention wasn't just feeding her ego, it was filling a void she didn't even know existed. As days turn into weeks, she might start to miss you deeply, but won't know how to admit it. Her ego will fight with her heart. One part of her will want to reach out, but the other will whisper, "What if he's really moved on?" That uncertainty will begin to weigh on her. She'll check your social media, wondering if you're thinking of her, if you found someone else, or if you've truly let go. And that mental tug of war, that's the exact moment she realizes your silence is power. See, your lack of reaction becomes your loudest message. You're not trying to prove anything anymore, and that's what makes her finally pay attention. When you were chasing, your energy told her she could come and go as she pleased. But now, your stillness tells her you've outgrown the need to prove your worth. You're no longer emotionally available to someone who only noticed your value after it was gone. And while she's wrestling with her thoughts, you're growing in peace. You're learning to enjoy your own company again, focusing on your goals, rebuilding your confidence, and reconnecting with your purpose. You start realizing that your value was never dependent on her acknowledgement. It was always there within you. You just needed the silence to hear it clearly. In the end, she'll realize that your silence wasn't an ending, it was a revelation, because while she's haunted by what she lost, you're finally free from what no longer served your soul. When you stop trying, something powerful happens. You stop feeding the illusion that love can be earned through effort alone. You stop chasing what was never meant to be forced, and you start aligning with what's meant to naturally flow toward you. This shift is quiet but profound. It's the kind of transformation that doesn't require you to say a word. Your energy speaks for you. Because when you finally stop overextending yourself, you move from trying to prove your worth to simply being someone who knows it. And that change doesn't just impact you, it shakes the entire dynamic between you and her. At first, she might still play it cool. She might think your silence is temporary, that sooner or later you'll cave and reach out again. That's what she's used to, your consistent presence, your reassurance, your efforts to fix things, even when she was the one pulling away. But as time passes, that pattern breaks. The messages stop coming, the calls don't happen. The emotional effort she once took for granted vanishes completely. That's when confusion begins to settle in. She starts wondering, why isn't he trying anymore? Did he really stop caring? What she doesn't realize at first is that your silence isn't about punishment, it's about peace. You've reached a point where your emotional energy is too valuable to keep pouring into someone who couldn't see its worth. You no longer want to convince anyone to stay, and ironically, that's when she starts feeling the weight of your absence. Your silence becomes louder than any words you ever spoke. It becomes a mirror that reflects her choices back at her. You see, when you were trying, she had all the power. She could take her time, keep her options open, and feel secure knowing that no matter what, you'd be there. But now the balance has shifted. By removing your effort, you've created a void, and that void forces her to confront a reality she's been avoiding. The attention she used to receive so effortlessly is gone, and the comfort she found in your consistency has disappeared. Suddenly, she starts to feel small ripples of regret. It might not be obvious at first, but deep down, she begins to miss the version of herself that existed when you were around. This is when your silence becomes transformational, not just for her, but for you. It teaches you the power of detachment. You start realizing that love isn't about constantly giving until you're empty. It's about mutual energy, respect, and effort. You understand now that trying too hard for someone who isn't trying for you only delays the inevitable. So you stop fighting for something that was never reciprocated. And that decision, that quiet act of self respect, begins to heal you in ways chasing never could. Meanwhile, her thoughts become her own prison. She replays the moments where she could have chosen differently, the texts she ignored, the times she acted distant, the times you showed care and she dismissed it. The more she remembers, the heavier that realization becomes. She starts to see that the problem was never your effort, it was her inability to value it when she had it. But by the time she understands that truth, you've already grown into someone who doesn't need her validation anymore. That's the turning point. When you stop needing her to see your worth, she finally starts to. The irony is the very moment she's ready to give what you once wanted, you've already evolved past the need for it. Your silence created space for growth, clarity, and emotional balance. It taught her that your presence was never guaranteed, and it taught you that love rooted in effort alone will never sustain peace. Because in the end, the moment you stopped trying wasn't a loss, it was liberation. It was the day you took your power back, and she began to truly understand what losing you meant. When you stop trying and she finally realizes what that means, a strange shift begins to happen, not just in her, but in the entire connection that once existed between you. The energy changes, the dynamic reverses. The person who used to hold all the emotional leverage suddenly starts feeling what you felt. The silence that once scared you now becomes her teacher. She begins to sense your absence not as an act of withdrawal, but as a mirror reflecting everything she took for granted. And this realization doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in slowly, in quiet moments when she least expects it, when she scrolls through old pictures, when a random song reminds her of you, when she opens her phone and instinctively expects your name to appear, but it doesn't. At first, she might try to convince herself she's fine. She'll tell herself that she's moved on, that she's better without the pressure of your presence. But deep down, her heart knows that something feels different, emptier. The attention she used to take comfort in, the certainty that you'd always be there, has vanished. She starts to notice the silence in ways she never did before. Every time she doesn't hear from you, a little piece of her pride begins to crumble. The very silence that once made her feel powerful now feels haunting. And for you, that silence becomes something else entirely. It's no longer a test of strength or a strategy to win her back. It becomes a reflection of peace, a symbol of your growth. You're not trying to make her miss you. You're just living your life again. You've detached from needing an outcome, and that detachment radiates confidence. You're not bitter, not resentful. You've simply accepted that love isn't about convincing anyone to see your worth. It's about being aligned with someone who already does. That acceptance changes your energy completely. It's calm, centered, and deeply attractive. She senses that shift. Women always do. When a man stops chasing and starts focusing inward, something about him becomes magnetic. Your silence no longer feels like absence. It feels like strength. It tells her you're not waiting around, that you've moved from desperation to dignity. And that realization stings because it forces her to face her own mistakes. She starts thinking about all the moments she dismissed your effort, all the times she assumed you'd never walk away. The more she reflects, the more she understands how rare that kind of consistency was. It's in those quiet realizations that regret begins to surface. She starts replaying your conversations, remembering the way you listened, the way you cared, the small things you did that no one else ever noticed. But by now, you're not the same man she once knew. Your silence has evolved you. It's made you emotionally grounded, less reactive, and more selective about where your energy goes. You've learned that love cannot thrive when only one person is trying. And that's the true beauty the day you stop trying. You start attracting from a place of peace, not pursuit. She begins to see the difference between attention and presence. Anyone can give attention, but presence, real emotional connection, comes from someone who values themselves enough not to settle for half effort. That's the kind of man she now sees in you. The one who walked away with quiet confidence instead of chasing validation. In time, she'll understand that your silence wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. It wasn't distance. It was dignity. She'll finally see that your decision to stop trying wasn't about giving up. It was about choosing yourself. And that's when she realizes the truth she never wanted to face. Losing someone who truly cared isn't just painful, it's unforgettable. Because when a man walks away in peace, he leaves behind an echo that lingers far longer than any words ever could. That's when she realizes your worth, not when you were chasing, but when you stopped.